Everyone loved the waffle truck. People were devastated when I sold the waffle truck.
Darn right.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Bring back the waffle. This is actually a podcast to start the campaign to bring back the waffle truck. No.
No, that was a wonderful experience. And it was not necessarily to, jump into the food truck business. Mm-hmm. It was to answer some questions for myself of how far do I want to go with this food thing.
Hello and welcome to the Inspired Woman Podcast. I'm Marcy Narum. This podcast is dedicated to impacting a multitude of women with its mission to celebrate, encourage, empower, educate, entertain, and connect women. Well, we should be having lunch on this Inspired Woman Podcast. Beth Schatz-Kaylor is with me today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I don't know if I should call you a foodie, a food expert. I don't know. Is there something you'd like to be called?
I don't necessarily like the word foodie. I don't know why. Locavore is kind of this hot term for like someone who really likes local food. And that's kind of my jam. But even that sounds a little, I don't know. I just like to eat. So we'll just go there.
Oh, but you're particular about what you like to eat though, right?
Yeah. Well, I love how food can, let's say food has so much more than just like nourishing ourselves, right? There's cultural things involved with it. You can really align your plate with your values in a lot of ways. And I love this place, and I love using what I eat to kind of vote for local farmers, my friends who are local producers, and being able to think a little bit more about what food means to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I want to hear more about just you, Beth.
Yeah, of course.
Tell us where you're from and what should we know about you?
Yes. So Bismarck native, local, born and raised, went to Bismarck High, all that good stuff, and went to UND. And my intention at UND was I was going to go to school for international studies in Spanish, and then I was going to join the Foreign Service with the U.S. State Department. I wanted to work in embassies. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to be that person and work in diplomacy, things like that. During college, I had an internship at the State Department. It was actually right after 9/11 happened, so it was a really interesting time to be involved in meetings that were in the international sphere, and realizing that if you work in an embassy, you don't necessarily get to work in quote unquote diplomacy and healing the world and making the world better. You will probably just be stamping passports a lot. And if you don't agree with a policy, that's your problem. You're just going to have to pass it through. And it kind of was an awakening. I especially worked in the education area for the State Department. And I just, because 9/11 happened with people who entered this country on student visas, there was a lot of conflict there, and so it just made me think maybe there's a different path here. So I changed directions, and I like to think though that I'm still a little bit in diplomacy, but maybe on a local level. Yes. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, when you mention healing and
of course, and so I ended up coming back to apply for grad schools, and I ended up just getting a job I really loved, meeting a kind of nice guy who was pretty cool. And I ended up staying. And I was always going to be one of those people who left Bismarck and never came back. And now I'm here, and I drive by my elementary school almost every day. And I love it. And I love the sense of community here, and how when you live here, we're a big, small town, right? And you can really kind of affect change, and that we're all interconnected in some ways, and we can all just, I really feel like we all have good intentions and want to help one another. So maybe that's overly optimistic. I don't know.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, aren't you lovely? So
I really do. Yeah.
So here we are, and we're going to stick around and see how much change we can make. So
you say we. Your husband?
Yes.
That really nice guy.
Nice guy. So
that you kind of liked.
Yes, it was funny. We definitely make each other better. So Kent is involved in law enforcement. So which is a type of world that I could never that wouldn't be something that would be a good fit for me. But he really thrives in it, and there's a lot of room for growth, and it's changing very rapidly as the community changes really rapidly. And so it's been just really interesting for us to in fact, just this morning we had breakfast together. He has the day off, and we were just talking about Bismarck's homeless population and what do we really need as a community to ensure that there are safe places to go. And we were talking about how Bismarck's finally getting a wet shelter, and how wonderful it is that we have a shelter, a place for people to go, that no matter if they've had, been taking substances, they still can find a safe place, and that we haven't had that before. And just how that can change his work, change our community and our disadvantaged populations that we just don't want to see and that we try not to see, and how we can really judge ourselves and our community based on how we treat people who are the most disadvantaged. So I'm really heartened to hear that there's a wet shelter happening, and I just can't wait to see how many programs and how much more support we can build for our communities most disadvantaged.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk about food some more.
Yes, let's go there. That's my thing.
That's your jam,
Yeah.
like you said. And you're involved in the Bisman Food Co-op.
Yes, I'm the board president of the food co-op, and my journey in food that's always been a thread that's underlined anything I've done. So my professional life is in marketing communications. So I was chief operating officer at Agency Mabu, which is a wonderful marketing communications firm here for 8 years, and I just recently left to just do my own thing, do my own freelance thing on a part-time basis, and maybe I call it just turn the volume down on my life a little bit. It was getting a little frenzied, a little frantic, and we just wanted to take a moment and focus on my relationships and things like this.
Good for you, by the way.
So good. Thank you. It was hard because we build up a lot of identity around our professional titles and things like that. So it was a big jump. But food has always been a thing that I've always loved ever since I was a kid. And when Kent and I got married, is really interesting because he came from a food background that I didn't. He was a hunter. He's very much an outdoorsman. He's a fisher. On one of our first dates, he made me hamburger helper with moose meat that he shot and butchered himself. And I was basically a vegetarian. Like, I was not a meat eater at all, let alone a hunter or anything like that. And so I remember looking at that moose burger helper and just thinking, this is crazy. Like, I don't know.
That's a first. I've never heard moose burger helper.
Moose burger helper. But then I went through, it's organic, it's free range, it's all those, when he knows where it came from. This isn't like a factory farm cow, this is. So now I eat meat, and he eats vegetables actually too, which is a great thing for him. And so from there I started blogging. And so I had this blog called Rhubarb and Venison, rhubarb being the first thing we pulled out of the ground in the spring, and venison being the last thing we put in the freezer at the end of the season. And we were really intentional about how we were eating and trying to connect to North Dakota and our sense of place, and how our food world here is so much more than Nefla and Fleischkikla, although I love some Fleischkikla, don't get me wrong. But I really thought it was interesting that we still have a strong backyard garden culture. We still have farmers who are growing vegetables and not just soybeans. Not that there's anything wrong with soybeans either. We need exports and things like that. And that there were it was just harder to connect to those things back when I was starting to blog. I was also really interested in small cafes. Now, I'm going to date myself here, but I was starting to blog before Facebook was a really big deal, and before Google had all these like profiles for everything and business listings, before there was really Yelp in a big way. And so if you wanted to go somewhere and you looked them up online, there were no photos of that place. Most of these places didn't have websites, and I would stumble on these little wonderful eateries, and there'd be no content for them. So I brought my camera and I started like taking pictures of my meal and looking at the interior and putting up little posts of these cafes scattered through North Dakota that I thought were doing something really unique and interesting. And that Midwest Living was a magazine that found me through those posts and asked me to start doing some scouting and then some freelance writing. And so that kind of became my thing, is the North Dakota food person.
Yes.
And it's just kind of kept going from there. And then I did a few farm dinners with Riverbound Farm to really help people engage with this idea of what is local food, coming out to the farm, me cooking the dinner to have everyone eat in the middle of a field. And then it evolved into the big waffle truck.
The waffle truck. I miss the waffle truck.
Do you remember the waffle truck?
I do. Yes.
That's so great.
And you put Nutella on
I did.
the waffle.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Nolan's like, yes.
Everyone loved the waffle truck. People were devastated when I sold the waffle truck.
Darn right.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Bring back the waffle. This is actually
yeah.
a podcast to start the campaign.
Oh, yes.
To bring back the waffle truck. No.
No, that was a wonderful experience. And it was not necessarily to, jump into the food truck business. Mm-hmm. It was to answer some questions for myself of how far do I want to go with this food thing? Do I want a restaurant? Do I want to what do I want to do with this?
Sure.
And the food truck answered it for me, because it was where I discovered my bandwidth and where I finally figured out that my energy isn't limitless. Because while I was doing a food truck, I was working full time. I was doing all these things. Bismarck isn't really well structured for mobile food services. We don't have a commercial kitchen that's easy for people to use or rent. So I was kind of finding commercially zoned spaces that I could prep my food, but that maybe weren't made for what I was trying to do, but were legal. So it was a really kind of laborious thing, not having the proper storage for my I'd have to redo it every weekend. So every weekend I had to go buy the stuff again and be able to use the kitchen, but I didn't really have storage for things. So anyway, it was a great 2 summers. I completely exhausted myself. I learned that I don't want to work in food service, but that there was definitely ways that I could use my energy to help grow our local food infrastructure. Hence the co-op, which opened 3 years ago, and hence my involvement on the board. And it's a way for local producers to be able to sell their product without having to spend an entire day sitting at a farmer's market, let's say. They can still do that,
right,
but it gives another way for them to have their goods out on the shelf, and hopefully another steady income stream, and another way to make farming and ranching just a viable way of life, that you don't have to just jump into some sort of like mega operation. North Dakota was built on small family farms, and it's a culture that's quickly diminishing, and there's people here who still want that and still want to live that way. So I really love that I have ways to spend my dollar to vote for that I can buy the lettuce or sprouts or beef or whatever those things are from people I know, and that I can encourage them to continue doing what they're doing by what I buy. And by the way, it's fresher, better. It's just like a healthier for me too. And so it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've been involved for like the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you help get it started?
I was not on the founding committee. I will say I was one of the first, I think I was member 33 or something.
Okay.
Like one of the first people to sign up, like, all right, you got my money, let's do this. And I've been on the board for 1.5 years, and I've been board president for the past, I was elected in October. So, and it's also been a growth opportunity for me too. I mean, I'm learning a lot. I didn't grow up in the grocery business. This is we all bring our own perspectives to it and our own skill sets. My background is marketing communications. But that's just one niche of what it takes to operate this whole enterprise. So, but yeah, I've really find it rewarding, and I just encourage people, if you haven't, go to the co-op and go check it out. They have great, hot food bar for lunch and the cafe. And I would say more than anything, look for the little local tags. I mean, we can't be 100% local, people still want bananas, and they still want, I mean, I think it's funny, people don't realize that you can't grow avocados in Bismarck, North Dakota,
or bananas,
yeah. Unless you have like a really great hothouse, high tunnel situation. But so we try to balance like the local with the customer expectations, with health, with all of those, and the wellness of our community, and price point. And we're trying to find the balance between all those things so we can really be sustainable for the long run.
And things have really turned around. I mean, there was a point in the community would be familiar with things kind of hitting a rough spot at the food co-op, but Carmen, the executive director,
general manager,
yep. Carmen, I'm blanking on her last name.
Hoffner, yeah.
Okay. When she stepped in, the ship kind of started to turn.
Yes. And I thank you for bringing that up. And I was I did a 1 million cups presentation on this, because we definitely want transparency, and we definitely had a rough patch that when we were for the first year or so, and there was producers weren't getting paid as they should have been, and there were just some issues, and I'm not going to say it was just management, but there were certain, let's just call them just issues that needed to be addressed. And with a change in management, we have actually a completely new board. Not that the board did the best they could too. So we've really been able to pay all those debts, be able to make sure all our producers are paid in a timely manner, make sure we're building up relationships in a positive way, and really just, it just feels so good to have gone through that and come out not only okay, but better and stronger because of the experience, and just learning so much from that. So it was really actually in the end positive. And I've found that in my own life, that it's the times of challenge and struggle that I've learned the most. And I'm so grateful for the challenges and the hard times in my life, because they really were the times that I grew the most as a person. And I hope that for my own child. Like, I hope he has moments of struggle, and that we're going to make sure he lands safely on his feet, right? And he's going to be lucky in that way. But I want him to be able to push himself and fail, and know that that's okay, because that's where I learned the most, was through failing. So, yeah.
Do you want to tell us more about your son?
Oh, sure. Ben's great. So Ben is 10 years old. He's just graduating 3rd grade. He's done with 3rd grade this year. And he's just a cool kid. And it's been interesting becoming a parent, and what you wish for your child and things like that. And I know going into those conferences, we'll talk about academics and all those things, but my question is always, is he kind? Is he, how is he interacting? Is he good to other people, his classmates and things like that? And when I get that feedback that, of his kindnesses, it's just, that's all I want for him. Like, I don't, you want your child, of course I want him to read, of course I want him to be academically successful, but it's really those kind of heart skills that I just really am so glad that I hope he's learning and gaining. So
heart skills.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it described that way. I love that.
Maybe I just made that up. I don't know if that's an actual thing.
I love it. You should, harness that. Brand it. There you go.
There
You're
it is.
a marketer.
I'll brand that. And I actually think, and maybe it's just his school, but I do think educators in general are more aware of this. Whenever I come across the children of my peers and my friends, regardless of where they're going, they're coming to me with, my child and his friends will play like yoga. Like, they have these skill sets of, they know what meditation is. They know what to, when I am feeling angry, what are my options? And these things are being taught to children. And I'm just so heartened by that, because I was not taught any of that. Like, if you are feeling upset, you go punch a wall or something. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Slam the door and stay in my room.
Exactly, right? And go pout.
Yeah.
I was really great at pouting. My husband might say I still am, but that's another topic. So, but no, he's really just, I'm really excited about the youth that are coming up. And I think everyone talks about kids, millennials, Generation Z, whatever, as being really involved in their phones and maybe superficial and really thinking they deserve everything. But all my interactions with young people is they are just savvy and smart and kind and accepting, so accepting. And I just am thrilled to see what they're going to be able to do. I'm really heartened whenever I see the young people younger than me and coming up. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's take a little trip down memory lane.
Okay.
You were talking about going to the eateries and blogging,
Yes.
and you had posted something on Facebook this week about Green Earth Cafe.
Yes. You remember Green Earth Cafe?
Yes. And I went, oh my goodness, Green Earth Cafe.
And tell me what you remember about it. I love hearing people's memories of it because it was such a special place for me.
Yes. So it was on Broadway.
Yep.
And I worked at KFYR TV. So this was in the early, mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And so for lunch, I would go down to Green Earth Cafe, and I can still see that wall of, in chalk.
Yep.
They would write the specials or the soups that they had, and the bread.
Bread was so good.
Amazing.
Everything was good. So consistently good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a regular lunch place.
Lucky you to be
for
able to
me.
just stroll on down there from working downtown. And it was, I don't think people remember, downtown wasn't as happening
No.
as it is now. I feel like Laughing Sun kind of spurred a lot of the downtown activity. And this was back when downtown was pretty quiet, and there was this little corner of Green Earth Cafe. And for me, as a newly minted, vegetarian, I told my mom and dad, like as many teenagers do, I'm not eating meat anymore. All the reasons that teenagers do that thing, and but that meant in North Dakota a lot of iceberg salads and Velveeta sandwiches, and like I came from a very traditional North Dakota processed food household. Parents worked. You just kind of fend for yourself. I ate a lot of ramen noodles, and going to Green Earth and there being actual fresh food that tasted good was just, and it was simple. It was very simple food, but it was just a revelation for me. And I just, the taste memory of it is so strong for me. And I have a lot of taste memories, and I think a lot of us do, but that was one of them. So on this thread, I was just craving Green Earth Cafe for some reason, and I found out that Gary, who was the main guy at Green Earth, is now working at Laughing Sun. So I am so going in there and seeing if they can recreate the things I'm craving: the tahini salad, the lentil soup, that bread. I just want all of it.
Yes. Bring Gary out from the kitchen.
Yes.
And are you still blogging?
I'm not, but I will for that. I will start up. We'll get a GoFundMe page going. I mean, we can do this. That'd be really exciting.
Oh my goodness.
And I think I loved that. Oh gosh, back then, I mean, we just didn't have a lot of really local places that weren't just serving, what I'll call diner food, like burgers, and remember the Drumstick Cafe and those big pancakes that fell over the plate, right?
Yep.
Like that real stick to your ribs kind of grub. This was the only place that in my memory that was serving just something different and fresh, and I just had such a soft spot for it. So I love that you remember that, and I think a lot of people did, and that was really, really sweet.
I'm glad that you helped me remember it, because I hadn't thought of it for many years.
And now I look at the Bismarck foodscape, and people, if you're coming in from San Francisco, it's going to look kind of small, but I would say that it's better than ever. And there's so many little gems. I look at what Tyler's doing with Terra Nomad. Noodle Zip is such a gem. Butterhorn Pirogue is consistently good. Heath up at Aleworks is doing some really interesting stuff. And we actually have chefs. We have people who are doing things that aren't just kicking out food, but they're able to use their creative energy to create something. And I know that a lot of local chefs are trying to source locally when they can, which is a lot of extra energy for them and sometimes extra expense. Fireflower is using some local inputs, and they're just doing some extraordinary things there. And Nima Kachina, I'm just really thrilled to see our food culture evolve and how quickly it has, and being able to see the transition of where we've landed has just been really cool. And these places are busy. I mean, it's not like you have to beg people to go to Noodle Zip. Like, it's always busy because people recognize when their food is good and they're willing to pay for it in this community. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, but yeah, you can do more than Applebee's. Not that Applebee's, well, okay. Applebee's is fine for a certain thing. So
I gotcha.
okay.
So I heard you say about the chefs like having, it's almost like an art in a way. You know, they're
absolutely.
creating something more than just putting something on a plate for us to eat. And so that makes me wonder about, you know, your marketing background and this thread of food through your life. I mean, do you see a connection, like your artistic side, your creative side, from both of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see it. If anyone else does is a whole nother thing. But so
I think I do.
well, the waffle truck was a grand experiment in that, right? Because I started that from scratch, and I didn't, the branding, the menu, the idea of even just doing waffles and how I wanted to get you to take a picture of your waffle and put it on your social media. So I wanted it to look a certain way, and I wanted the branding to be, I always thought for food trucks to be a really great food truck, I want you to be able to see me from across the street and be like, I know exactly what they do, I know exactly what they're experts at, and I'm going to order that thing. So whether it's, you know, the taco truck or whatever, I want to understand what you're doing and not just kind of like a diner on wheels and not really know. So the waffle truck was absolutely an experiment in that. Now that I'm working in a volunteer capacity at the co-op, I'm seeing ways that there's lots of like people interested in it, but we're all working in little silos. And I feel like we need to have a few more, I'm getting more interested in infrastructure and more sustainability and how we can make it easier for anyone to buy local foods. Right now, you know, if you live in North Bismarck, it might not be super convenient to drive down to the co-op. So, I mean, okay, how else can we help you out? Even though it's still just like a 7-minute drive, but okay, it's hard. I get it. So I want to have more community conversations so we all have an understanding of why, you know, it's great to go. I understand Walmart pickup's great and that the price is good and all those things, but how we're also, that's like a vote for a certain kind of agriculture and a certain kind of diet and a certain kind of food culture. And if we can put a portion of our food budget for the other things, if we value, you know, local producers, if we value family farms, if we value healthy, locally grown food, like we need to advocate for that. And so throughout my whole life, I feel like I've been thinking about my sense of place and what does it mean to be in North Dakotan? What does it mean to live here? Why are we here when it's so easy to just, I don't know, move to Austin, Texas, and then have an automatic identity of coolness, right? It'd just be like, if you move to Austin, you're just automatically cool. And you automatically have great food and you automatically just can insert yourself into something that exists. When you're here, you kind of have to work for it. And that frustrates people but I do think you can do anything here if you're willing to put the energy behind it. And if you put the energy behind it, people will rally around you. And if they see that you're doing something authentic and cool, like you can build the support network, but you're going to have to do it yourself because there's not a million people here, literally not a million people in the entire state. So you're going to need to put forth your own energy, participate in maybe a bigger way in those other communities. I think you, Marcy, are doing this in such an amazing way with Inspire Women, like building a community to acknowledge and celebrate people who are doing cool things and being able to tell the stories, because you are a great example of this, of just putting forth your energy to build a community. And I just think that's really admirable. And I think I'm trying to do something a little similar in the kind of the food world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know if that even answered your question. I probably went on a big tangent there.
No, I love I love listening to you.
Oh, you're so kind.
I do.
Mutual. It's been fun even watching your journey, Marcy, because I remember watching you on the news. I mean, I just do. And
if Green Earth Cafe, I would have been 20, 25, 26.
Yeah.
So
And
you were in grade school? What?
no, not quite, not quite. But I know the newscasting life, you could have easily probably gone to a different market. I just know that's common. But for whatever reason, you stayed, and then you even like took the skill set you had to kind of do other things and to invest in this community. And I just am so inspired by that. And you are like showing me so many other women who are doing the same things that I wasn't even aware of. So it's just really cool.
Oh, you're so kind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's true.
Let's keep the focus on you, Beth.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
Oh gosh. I mean, I just love talking about myself. No, I'm just kidding. No, this has been great. Obviously, food is a big thread. I geek out on Instagram, and I'm still Rhubarb and Venison on Instagram if anyone wants to just see someone nerd out in food things. But I think just finding your own passion and what the change you want to create in this community, it's really interesting how you can just jump in, and there's probably someone else thinking the same way. And there's just a lot of projects. It just takes a little bit more energy to get out and participate. And if you want something here, if you want to have those restaurants open, if you want to have those cool little boutique shops, if you want that, the only way they stay open in this place is if you go out and shop there. Or if you go out and participate in those events, or if you go to those concerts. If you want that, whatever those things are to happen here, you actually have to engage with them, because we can't rely on a big mass of people to support something. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but you had a question.
Yeah. Last question.
Yes.
She believes she could, so she did.
Yeah.
Our little tagline that we've borrowed. How is that true for you?
She believes she could, so she did. Oh gosh, I feel like so many ways. With the waffle truck, for sure, was just a vision of something that seemed somewhat impossible and irrational. And why would you even do that? And you just, well, let's just do it. And I have to acknowledge that I recognize that I have been able to do a lot of the things in my life because I have just such an enormous amount, I feel like, of privilege. It's not like financial privilege. I grew up very middle class and all those things, but I know, like, being from here, it's very, and looking like everyone here and talking like everyone here and even thinking like everyone here, that there's a certain kind of ease of life. And I think one reason the people who come back here or live here have roots here or had family here, through other people I've met here, whether they moved from out of state and didn't have family here or from out of another country, especially if they look different, I feel like it's really much more challenging in a way to live in a place where everyone knows each other like they do in Bismarck, and everyone has family like they do in Bismarck. And I want to recognize that a lot of the success I feel like I've had in my life and a lot of the choices I've been able to make are because I've had such a security net of just being of here and just having family here and doing all those things, and that it is still kind of harder if you're not from here to break into some of that if you look a little different or maybe have different context. So all that being said, I think there's a lot of things I've been able to achieve. Right now, I'm really interested in how can I understand other perspectives and how can I maybe open doors for other people. And the only way right now I'm doing that is actually just kind of through listening and just trying to understand other perspectives. And hopefully I'm able to lift others up and kind of light their candle, because I feel so blessed and I feel like I've had so many lucky breaks in my own life. So
you are an inspiration. You are.
Oh, you're so kind. Ditto. Same to you.
Thank you for sharing your story here, and just excited to see what happens next.
As am I. We'll find out. Thanks so much, Marcy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Inspired Woman podcast is sponsored by Quantum Productions, the home of the award-winning director and cinematographer Nolan Johnson. He creates unique high-end video products throughout the Midwest. You can check him out at quantumprond.com.